Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We rented movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feedback bit by bit. Sweety and Sweety are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's holiday.
Tatum, just get in the car.
Hello, Sydney.
Hi. Who is this?
You tell me.
Well, I have no idea.
Scary night, isn't it? With the murders and all, it's like right out of a horror movie or something.
Randy, you gave yourself away. Are you calling from work? Because Tatum's on her way over.
Do you like scary movies, Sydney?
I like that thing you're doing with your voice, Randy. It's sexy.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, come on. You know I don't watch that shit.
Why not? Too scared?
No, it's just what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Send Us podcast, your favorite podcast where two Sweety sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweety with an IE.
And I'm Sweety with a Y.
Today is October 3rd? October 3rd. Also
Mean
known
Girls
as Mean
Day.
Girls Day.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that movie.
On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. It's October 3rd.
So good. Yeah, it's October 3rd, guys. We're just a couple days into October. But here at the Sweety Club, you know, October, it's an important month for two reasons. A, Sweety's birthday.
Woo!
What up? There's going to be like some separate shit going on for that. Stay tuned.
I finally get birthday movies.
Number two, time to get spooky.
Spooky.
So if you're fans of the podcast, you know that in October, we leaned towards, first year we did a bunch of Halloween movies, which was awesome. Second year, I think we did a couple, because we kind of like ran out of Halloween ones. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we didn't run out. We like to do some spooky ones.
Yeah.
Didn't we do it with Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, I think so.
It seems like yesterday.
I know.
How
That's
could it
crazy.
have been in October?
I love that episode. Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
so good. One of our best episodes.
Good.
And so we're kind of like, we've run out of the Halloween themed movies, so now we're just doing the spookersons, as what I like to call spooky spookersons.
Yes. And so obviously I am an avid horror movie fan. I did not become one, however, until college, but I have a lot of very solid memories of my childhood into my teenage years of kind of embracing and learning to having like a weird curiosity of like really being scared of them but still wanting to watch them. And so a lot of the movies that I pick are kind of involved in some way in that, especially tonight's film, which is Scream. Good scream.
Can you do a scream?
No, I'm just not a screamer. Didn't we talk about this when like if a killer was coming after me, I'd be like, ah, like.
Well, remember we talked about,
I just can't do the girl scream.
I believe it was Indiana Jones.
Yes. Yes. Good memory.
I was like, Indiana Jones, Legends of the Hidden Temple. Not true. Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. Fun trivia fact, Kate Capshaw, the heroine, and
Yes.
that I wouldn't even call her heroine, lady lead.
Okay.
The dud lead.
Kind.
Had to learn how to scream for that role.
Right.
And
You did-
if you've
you
seen that
talked about
movie,
that.
she screams like literally the
Screams
whole movie.
all the time. It's annoying.
So, and that's so true because like you don't scream like you maybe like last time you've screamed was probably like when you were a kid. You know, kids are always like ah, and like screaming, but then you like really lose that scream power. So I also wonder like if I ever get put into that situation, like what noise will I make? I just don't know. I think I've done like a scream. Like
It's like your mouse scream.
Mouse or haunted house, maybe
like,
like really scared,
I don't know.
or someone. I think if someone like jumps out at me, I'm more like that. Yeah,
Okay, we'll try it. We'll try it later.
yeah. Even a mouse one, I think I'd be like,
Oh God, yeah, you freak out.
yeah.
But
or
like
like
that.
roadkill. I still do that with like roadkill. If I'm like walking along, I'm like do and there's like a flattened rat or something. I'll be like and like kind of jump to the side. It's like my reaction.
Good one.
But yeah, Scream.
Scream.
1996 was a very good year.
Was it?
Well, this was like mid 90s, which I feel like was such like glory days of life.
It was a peaceful time.
It was.
Bill Clinton, bad tie-dye clothes and
Middle school, guys.
crop sweaters. It's just
For me, middle school. For you,
Yeah.
late elementary school.
Yep.
Such a peaceful time.
Fourth or fifth grade.
Yeah.
For me.
And to be honest, I did not see this movie when it came out.
I'm not surprised.
Was terrified of horror movies.
You were.
Andre, Sweety here had like a curiosity of them. Scared of them, but I think
You
you
were
had a
scared
curiosity
of them, but like you
of them.
pretended that like you just didn't like them.
Yeah.
I feel like, whereas
Yeah.
I was like fully admitted that I was terrified, but still would like peek behind my fingers, and be
Because
like,
here's
I
the
want
thing
to
with
see
me,
a
like, I think, and I'm still kind of like this, but much better in some ways. So here's the thing with me. So when I was like young, I didn't mind being like scared, like jump scares or like being spooked in that way. I was always way more scared of like gore. So that's what I thought horror movies were. So you talk about the slasher films that like kind of predated us, but were very much talked about as like the horror genre at the time. So you're talking about your like Friday the 13th, your
Nightmare on
Elm Street, your Halloween, blah, blah, blah. So those are really slasher and were too gory and bloody for me. So that's what scared me the most.
It's funny
so I
'cause
didn't
actually
even
they're really
look
not.
at them.
Well, I mean, they had their moments, but like,
Right.
Halloween's not very bloody at all.
I mean, I was definitely fascinated by them because I remember going to the video store and the horror movies had the best
Covers.
boxes. Yeah, the best covers. And I could imagine, what they were about. And like, obviously with horror movies, they're such, even if you've never seen them, those characters are like woven so far into pop culture that like, unless you're living under a rock, like you'll know like what those are. But recently, guys, I've really come into what I'm calling my horror movie renaissance. And now I'm really not scared at anything, to the point like I'm waiting for a movie that is going to really, really scare me. So I've been watching many, many more, and I have actually a whole long list.
That like that's you to be like. I think
You don't think anything's going to scare me?
Well, so far, I mean, I feel like I've thrown everything at you that I think is the scariest thing, and you're like,
I don't know like what happened to me in the last couple years. Maybe life is scary enough.
But didn't you say what's the thing that you think is scary?
War violence.
Okay. Well, that's just because you don't like gore, though.
Exactly. So it's like connected to that. But then like once you start seeing, like you just said, like even those slasher films, they're like really not that bad. And they're like, it's not like funny, but they don't never really show like that much or something, right? Like even this one. So for me, this movie, like I said, I didn't see it when it came out, and I knew all about it and I knew who the killers were and everything like that. But I don't think I saw it till like much, much later. And I was pretty scared of it, I think, when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. But watching it this time around, I was like, you're right. Like, it's really not that bad. Like, the actual slashing parts are not that bad.
I would say this is one of the gorier slashers.
Okay,
the
so
beginning
if I'm
scene.
not that bothered by this...
No, the older ones
I'd be
are like
okay.
fake, more like fake. This is more like realistic gore, I guess. But, I mean, don't watch any... I mean, I want you to watch them because I want, like, secretly, I'm like, I want her to be scared. But, like, the really gory movies are, like, the French movies and the Spanish movie. Like, those seem to be a little gorier, especially the French ones.
I'll try those out.
They're really good. But, yeah.
Okay, so how about you? So what was your first, watching of this?
So, I did
Because you were really young. When this came out, how old were you?
I was very young. So, I probably saw it when I was in 6th or 7th grade or something.
Wow, okay.
Here's the scenario. I was at Blockbuster with my father, Ron. Love you, Ron. And we've talked about this before, but they used to have a bin that had at Blockbuster, they would do when a new movie came out is that they would have like a zillion copies of the same movie, right? And then when that movie is no longer new, they take those off the shelf and put them in this bin, and it's like $5. I think it was more. It was like $10 or something for the movie, and it still had the Blockbuster sticker on the thing that said "Be Kind, Rewind" and like Blockbuster. So this is one of the movies that was in there, and I don't know why. I think what was happening was that I was really into YM magazine, and teen people. Neve Campbell was very big at this time, obviously, because of this movie. So I think that I was just like a fan of hers, I guess.
Yeah. And Party of Five.
I didn't watch Party of Five, so I don't think it came from that, but it was just something about it, I guess, just like sparked my curiosity. So, or I saw it on TV or something like that. So I had Dad buy it for me, and he didn't really question it. I don't even know if he like looked at like what it was. Good one, Ron.
God bless him.
I know. God
He
bless
had
him.
such trust in
God
us.
bless him. But that night, our aunt came down, Joanna, for some reason, I don't know, and her and Dad had like a dinner or whatever. And I went in the basement and I put this into the VCR, which remember that one is like old. It was like Pepe's. It had like the open top and you push it down. So I watched this that night. Scared out of my gourd.
Oh my God. In the
And
basement?
Then, and then obviously I'm sure I like shielded my eyes through most of it. But I like loved it, but it was terrifying. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought it was so funny. I was so intrigued by the movie, and I think the good thing about this movie is that there's literally like 20,000 references. Like I wrote them all down, and there's like a zillion. I ran out of space.
Now you know what they are.
Yeah, and so, but this movie kind of was like made me want to seek out those to be like, oh, what is this? What's the one they always mention here? Them like, like prom night. They mention all the time. No, they're always like, what's that? What's that? So it really sparked a curiosity. But so that was the night. Go to bed. Trying to fall asleep in my bed. Look up at the ceiling. We have like a ceiling light thing, whatever fixture. The little screw in the light literally looks like the ghost face killer. And it like I couldn't stop staring at it, and I kept thinking like at any moment he was gonna burst through the door and like stab me, or like come through the window and stab me. I was so terrified. I flicked on my lights, stayed up like the whole night, slept with the lights on. If I fell asleep, I don't know. And that was that. And like, but I still loved it, and I would watch it all the time. I knew all the lines by heart. I used to do this super creepy thing where I would envision myself as one of the characters. I think I usually played Tatum. And was like, that's me. I'm the actress. I don't know. It was a weird thing. But I fucking love this movie so much, and I think it's so good, and it's such a clever, like self-referential kind of meta thing, and a commentary on like slasher movies and how stupid they are, and then kind of flipping that around and being like, the women aren't like these dumb people. And like Sweety kept saying this when we were watching it. She kept being like, the girls are so tough in this. I love it. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's on purpose, because Wes was like, enough with this bullshit, even though he's like part of, I should say Wes Craven's female characters have always been a little tougher and stronger, I think, than most people's.
Yeah.
Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street is another really good example of this. But I think he's always kind of leaned toward this. But this one really made you be like, because there's a line in it, right, where it's like, oh, it's always about some dumb big boobed woman who like can't run and blah blah blah.
Runs the wrong.
So it really kind of flipped that on its
going
head.
out the front door.
Yeah. And it was just like I would say it really kind of brought horror back into the mainstream for sure.
Yeah, I would say that too, because it's like all those slasher ones that I was talking about were really in like the 80s, right? And then you kind of had like a bit of a gap in the early 90s, let's say. They were
there, but I don't think that they were as prevalent, or people just saw them as like trashy.
Well,
things.
I mean, and that's really smart of Wes Craven to kind of look at it through a different lens and being like, okay, people aren't watching horror movies, like why? And then kind of turning it on its head a little bit. So like, go Wes Craven.
Go Wes, R.I.P.
Awesome. And then they put like, I was also very smartly all of like the big stars of the time to populate this film. And so you have, looking back on it, these actors and actresses that were like so big in the mid 90s. And now looking back, you're like,
duh.
Wow,
reason
remember
I was like, I don't know why I love Neve Campbell. Duh, The Craft.
Oh, yeah. Which was after this, though.
Yeah, but I think I saw it before I saw it, because remember I saw Scream after the fact. Craft was 97, I think, so that makes sense. That plays out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love this movie. Sweetie, did you say you have seen this, but like hiding, or
No.
was this
So
your first full
I definitely
time?
have seen it like the full time, and I was asking a lot of questions because I've only seen it once, and it has been a long time. But I remember some scenes more than others, let's say. Obviously like the big ones. So you have the one at the beginning, you have the garage door one, and then you have the one at the end. So those are, remember, because as I was talking yesterday, I was like, remember when they like stab each other in the kitchen? So I like remembered like stuff like that, but I kind of was missing like some plot points. And then I was getting confused because I know there's like several sequels, and then like who's the killer in all the sequels? So you know, I was asking
She made me
this.
tell her,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna like watch those.
Oh, you should. Scream 2 is actually I really like Scream 2.
I just don't need. I don't know if I need any more of that in my life of like the stuff. I mean, I think this is like clever. I don't think it's super super funny. The jokes are a little old for me.
Well, okay.
At the time, I'm sure it was like.
Well, like I said, for some reason I thought Matthew Lillard was like hysterical when I was little because it's a very young, kind of immature humor. I think that's probably why.
I just feel bad
But there's
for
a
him.
there's a lot of like
I
clever
have sympathy for
lines
that character.
before that. Like, what was the one you were like, you like loved it? I can't remember when he's like picks up he's like, should I let the machine get it? You like love that.
He's like blinking.
Um,
He's like freaking out or gonna pass out from the loss of blood. Yeah, but I'm excited to talk about it. I don't think I'm gonna have as much input as you are, because I just don't have the horror movie background and experience.
The chops.
But I'm glad to let you take the lead because if you guys remember, also, if you're listeners of this podcast, you'll know that several movies that I've been like, oh my God, this is my favorite movie of all time. And Sweetie's like, this is the first time I've ever seen this. And I'm like, what? So I'm glad this one is slightly like, again,
Payback,
turning stuff on
bitch.
its head.
Just like Wes.
Yep. And letting you kind of choose a movie, but also one that is semi-new to me. So very cool. This, I mean, this like, but it's interesting how like, even though I've only seen this once, how it still kind of shapes your childhood, as I was just saying that like how this was just interwoven into pop culture, like as a middle schooler, but like all those, you know, the references and then those actors and actresses, that Scream mask. I mean, you know,
Yeah, very big.
so
Right, and then like spoofed obviously in Scary Movie.
Right,
and
right.
spoofs itself in the next movie, so it's several levels here.
right.
But yeah, cool.
So meta.
Let's do it.
It's time for the Sweetie synopsis. Yeah,
Sweeties.
Billy and his penis don't deserve you.
Sweetie's obsessed with that line.
Yeah, Tatum. What?
She loved it.
What a good friend.
Yeah. Okay. Casey Becker is a high school student who is making some Jiffy Pop. Sweetie, you ever have Jiffy Pop?
I never liked that. I thought that was strange.
I've never had it.
Why would you choose
Maybe I would like
why
it.
Would you
I don't
choose
know.
that over the bag.
Tell you why. If you don't have a microwave like us, we should probably get. We should have gotten Jiffy Pop today
That's smart.
for the movie.
I feel like Jiffy Pop is like dry though, and it's not like coated
Do you
in
know?
butter.
I think you just
I'm
ate
sure
one
I've
that
had
wasn't
it.
a butter one. You know how they have popcorn that's like not movie theater butter, and you're like, what are you doing
I'm
with
sure
your
there's
life?
butter varieties, but I don't know why. But like, did that house not have a microwave?
I think it was just the effect of like they needed the like thing to catch on fire and blah.
Well, I didn't even remember because when she's like running through the house, I'm like, why is it all foggy in here? And then I was like, oh yeah, the Jiffy Pop. Forgotten.
Foggy, it's not a dream sequence, it's real. Okay. Casey Becker, again, high school student. She's waiting for her boyfriend, I guess, but she gets a phone call. Mysterious man. He's like, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. This was the 90s where like phones were still a thing, right? Where someone would call you and you'd be like, hello, and you didn't know who it was.
I mean, this
stuff
movie
like
could
that.
never be made now because nobody picks up a number they don't know.
Right. Right. So there you go. But so meanwhile, or so I should say, after a while, she starts realizing this guy might be crazy because he's like, oh, I want to know like who I'm looking at. She's like, what? And then he starts getting creepier and creepier and getting more and more violent. So she starts freaking out. Turns out it's a fucking like maniac killer, and they have her boyfriend like taped to a chair outside. Poor Steve, duct taped. You know, he's gutted. He's dead. And then they come after Casey. They kill her right near her parents. She almost was saved by them, but not. And then she's dead. Wow. I mean, obviously people talked a lot about this when this movie came out, but it's a kind of a tribute to Psycho where you have who you think is the star in this movie. When this came out, Drew Barrymore was very prominently featured on the posters and everything. So you thought she was the main character, but then she gets killed in the beginning of the movie and you're like, what the fuck is going on? So she's dead. Yeah. Our true heroine is Sydney Prescott. Not Cindy Prescott, as I thought for several years. It was very confusing. I was like, why did they name her Cindy? That's the dumbest name in the world. And it's funny because in Scary Movie, the Anna Faris character is Cindy. To like make fun of that. Okay. So, Cindy Prescott. Her mother was killed brutally a year ago. She's still kind of battling with that, so she's a little guarded. She's got a boyfriend, Billy Loomis. I mean, garden variety raper, I think, just by looking at him, right? I mean...
Only because he's played by our number one raper, Skeet Ulrich.
No, our number one raper is Kiefer Sutherland. But I would think Skeet Ulrich is like a close number 2.
Sure.
This guy is just no good. Was he ever a nice character in something?
I don't know.
Doubt it.
I looked at his IMDb.
He's in that new
like,
show Riverdale, which I
know.
kind of started watching, and I think he's maybe good. I don't know.
Okay, good.
I haven't watched enough of it, but he's somebody's dad, and I was like, this is weird.
You're not a rapist?
Billy Loomis? So that's her boyfriend, and he's kind of upset because they've been going out for 2 years, and they haven't had sex, and he's the guy, so he's like all huffy about it. Meanwhile, Sydney's dad's going out of business, going out of town for business.
Going out of business. The way
She's a little spooked, so she's
talking
going to
about it.
stay with her friend Tatum. But she's late picking her up. Sydney gets a phone call. It's that scary voice again. It's the killer. He tries to get her, misses her, brush with death, and then he's gone. And all of a sudden, Billy comes in the window, and she's like, "Oh my God, Billy, I'm so scared." And then a phone drops out of his pocket, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's you." So this was not a time when everyone had cell phones. I know Billy says that, but I think it was a rarity.
Yeah, 1996, no way.
Right.
Nobody had a cell phone. I mean, I know Zach Morris had that, like, whatever one. Also, and probably, well, that wasn't 1996.
Right. It wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a suspect. So they take him into the station and
It's sausage.
No, he's not a sausage. He's a rapist, but not a sausage. Has a sausage, but whatever.
Whoa.
So he gets questioned. He's like, I wasn't like Billy, like saying all these things. Sydney goes home. The killer calls at her again at Tatum's house. And so she's like, fuck, was it not Billy? Because he called me from the police station? He can't do that. So now you're like, who the fuck is the killer? I don't know. So after the shenanigans, Sydney goes to school, which I feel like is ill-advised after this traumatic kind of incident. Yeah. She goes to school. I'd be like, take a sick day, honey.
Well, as they say, like, you'll be safe here. Or is she?
Because for some reason, the killer is in the girl's bathroom. Was he just like waiting for her to go in there? I'm still very confused about how that whole scene went down.
So many people around.
Especially when you know who it is. Like, how did that person get from over there to the bathroom? I mean, I'll just say it. I mean, obviously, if you haven't seen Scream, I'm sorry. But the killer is 2 people, and one of them is Stu, Tatum's boyfriend. And Sydney's just talking to them before she goes in the bathroom. She runs into Billy, and then Billy leaves, and she goes into the bathroom. So Stu must have gone.
Where do they put the robes?
That's what I'm saying.
And the mask.
That's
and, like,
I don't
how
get
did
it.
they do the quick change and then
he
no
how
one
did he get out of
sees
the bathroom?
them?
Nobody saw him leaving the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Maybe he went out the window. I don't know. So, anyways, because of this, the principal cancels class. There's a citywide curfew at like 9 p.m. Which, to be honest, I feel like it should have been like 7 p.m. I feel like 9 p.m. is still a little late.
As long as it's dark.
It's dark, so I mean, come on. Even though there's a curfew, though, we're still gonna have a party because slasher movies are nothing without a party where a lot of people can get killed because everybody's in one place. So they go to this party at Stu's house, and a couple things happen. More people die. Tatum, very tragic incident in the garage door. Lesson learned: don't go through the doggy door.
Don't go through the doggy door.
Was it a cat door?
Well, the cat went through there, but
right. It was bigger than
dog
a cat.
door size.
We've seen cat
I mean, she
doors.
could fit into it. She could fit through it.
She definitely could have fit through that if she just like wiggled that shoulder. She like turned that shoulder a little bit.
Yeah,
she
but
could
the
have
thing was
eased
moving
out
and like lifting her up. So.
Yeah, it was a stressful situation, but she's dead anyways. She's dead. The camera, like all this stuff. A couple of key players we haven't mentioned: Gail Weathers, like Gail Simmons.
Yeah, I was like, Gail.
That was very confusing in my head. Gail Weathers is this kind of tabloid reporter played by Courtney Cox, who a year ago kind of developed the whole story about Sydney's mother and put out a book with all her theories in it. She thinks that Sydney named the wrong person as the murderer. Cotton Weary. Sweety loves that name.
Okay. What is that name? I kept calling him Cotton Mather the whole time because, guys, that's the only Cotton that I know. Who is Cotton Weary? Like, who made up that name? It's awesome.
It's awesome?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, maybe it's a riff on the Salem witch trials. I don't know.
No. Cotton Mather was like the guy from like Pilgrim Times.
He was in the Salem.
Someone related to him it was like Cotton Mather the Third or something.
Okay.
Salem
whatever, sweetie. But yeah. So we got that. We got Deputy Dewey, who's Tatum's brother, who is a police officer, David Arquette, Billy Stu, and then their goofy friend Randy, who loves horror movies. So, I mean, basically everyone kind of gets killed or left for dead, and then Sydney has sex with Billy because she decides, hey, why not? We'll do all this traumatic shit, but like, let's do it. Why not? They have sex, and then the killer comes in, stabs Billy. So you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't Billy. Or is it? Because, like I just said a couple seconds ago, minutes really, Billy and Stu are the killers.
Right. I mean, I wish I could have a time machine and go back and watch this and like not have anyone have told me anything or heard
You
anything.
knew who the killers were when we were watching it this time. Oh, you mean in real life?
In real life.
time.
Like, no one talks about this movie. You go in a theater and you're like, oh, who's the killer? But in watching it this time, like, after you know who it is and multiple times, it's like pretty easy to see who the killer is because they have them running into the scene and being like kind of out of breath, and then they use that music.
But just Billy, though. I think that they were trying to put the suspicion on Billy specifically.
And then when he gets stabbed,
and then when he gets dead, when he gets dead, when he
that
gets
makes
killed,
sense.
that kind of goes away.
Got it.
But I don't. For the most part, I don't think Stu was very obvious to me. Like, he was crazy, but it didn't seem to me. I think when I watched it.
Well, and also like once you do know, and then you go back, sort of like a Sixth Sense kind of thing. Like there are like these looks between those two characters. I mean, it does like
there's a
really
fan theory that they're gay
sense
for each other.
Well, it's like nothing
Or
to do
at
with
least Stu specifically is. But I mean, all you have to do is look into Skeet Ulrich's eyes, and you're like, he is a cold-blooded killer. Like, he is so fucking sketchy, and he does this like, I think he's trying to do like some kind of like steely like eye like. Look at my
Blue steel?
yeah, like eye thing, but it's not working. It's just raper.
I just don't know how she dated him for 2 years.
No,
Maybe
it's
there's
weird.
no one else cute in that school, but he is scary looking.
I don't know.
I think
yeah.
she didn't want to have sex with you because you're scary.
Because you're gross and greasy looking. He's super greasy.
Wash your hair.
Anyway, so they reveal themselves to be the killer. They tell her that tomorrow's the anniversary of her mom's death. Guess what? They killed her mother because she was sleeping with Billy's father, and she's the reason that his mom left town. So there's the motive, and they've been like planning this for a year, I guess, even though they haven't killed anybody like since then, but whatever. So there's this whole like kerfuffle, and like people get like wounded, and then you're like, oh, they must be dead, and then they're not.
If someone gets shot in the shoulder, they're not dead.
They're not dead. And then finally, Stu gets a TV thrown on his head, so he's dead. And then Billy gets like shot a couple 100 times, and then comes back again, and then shot for good in the head, so he's dead. So Cindy survives. She's a survivor, along with Randy.
She's
and
a survivor.
Gail and Dewey.
She's not gonna give up.
Good times though, and that's the end of it. And then Gail gets her big scoop, her big story, and it's good. It's it. That's it. It's the end. That's the movie.
That's the movie, which then spawned 2 sequels, 3,
4.
What?
Oh, I mean there are 4 total.
Yeah.
I don't know
3.
what you would. Oh, okay, yeah.
Scream 2, Scream 3, There's a Scream 4.
Very original. Yeah.
Oh my
A little
god.
more recently. It was pretty good.
Did Wes Craven do all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, and actually, I don't know. I don't know if he did 2 and 3 actually. Kevin Williamson may have done those ones.
Yeah.
He wrote this movie. So I guess it's not fair to say that like Wes, wanted to turn things
So Kevin
around. Because I guess it was a
Williamson,
Kevin Williamson.
Still remember
But,
Dawson's Creek guy. So
right,
he was
so
really
that-
well
he did
versed in the
that,
teen genre.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, smashing flick.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy
No, it's
this.
super clever, and it's really well written. I would say well acted. Like you said, like all the meta stuff is so good. If you're a fan of horror movies, all the little Easter eggs and stuff they talk about different horror movies within it is like a whole nother movie. And that's like really fascinating. I really enjoyed it. And it is definitely scary. I mean, once you've seen it once, it's not that scary. But I will say that first scene is still very scary.
So I wrote about this on my blog, but that scene to me feels tonally a bit different than the rest of the movie. It feels very upsetting and just like really painful, like in your heart and soul or something. It's just gut wrenching, pun. But there's something and I boiled this down to on my blog, saying that like the thing about that scene that is so scary is that it said to me anyways that like your parents can still be there, because for when you're little, your parents are your protectors, right? Like as long as my mom and dad are here, like nothing bad can happen to me. And then in this scene, her mom and dad are like walking up to the door and she's getting stabbed like just out of their line of sight. And like the fact that like something that horrible and violent could happen to you while your parents are still there just like really fucked me up. And it's just so brutal the way they like stab her, and it's sad, and like their heart-wrenching scream of like her mom. It's just like awful. It's just really sad.
Yeah,
and
I was really disturbed.
and you don't often feel that way about victims in a horror movie. And I don't know if it's because like we know Drew Barrymore. She's not just like some random first victim, right? It's Drew Barrymore. But I don't know. It's just like there's something about it that just like you felt just so bad for her, and I think that's rare in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that and say the other parts that stand out for me with that first scene is that, again, she's like pretty badass, and she's like kind of able to outsmart the killers for like a good chunk of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of think she's getting away. So there's also that like sort of thing. You're like, oh, I think she's going to make it. And then you're like, well, nope, she isn't. And then also that white sweater and blonde hair combo. I don't know. That's like so iconic to me. And obviously like shows up the blood. The blood shows up so well on it. But it's, and like, I think the part that, and I forgot about, was that she's still holding the telephone. So when she's getting stabbed, like the parents pick up the phone to call the police, and obviously like the portable, she's the portable phone, and they can like hear her being stabbed, and that is like brutal.
No, it's like, Casey,
yeah,
baby.
Ooh, brutal. And then is it because they slash her vocal cords or something? So then that's why she really can't like. She's like, she can't. Yeah. They don't see her, and she gets.
She tries to yell out, but she can't.
Yeah, out of the line of sight because like on purpose he like kind of slashed her throat, but. And, like, she's alive for, like, a good chunk of that. And, like, kind of this whole movie, like, people get stabbed a lot. And you're like, wow, like, you're still kicking. Like, good for you.
Which, like, I'm like, it's probably not accurate. But, like, whatever. We'll just let it slide.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that scene's amazing. Obviously, I mean, made me very afraid to be home alone. Afraid of the phone.
Don't answer the phone. I think there was a lot of people stop answering the phone when they were
and like they get and like getting caller ID, even though you could block calls. And it's funny. The first scene, or like the second scene in the second one, Sydney's in college, and someone calls, and they're like, "Hello, Sydney," and it's like dun dun dun. She's like, "Hey," and she's like not fazed by it, and then she's like picks up her caller ID because now they have that like in this time she's like, Billy Simmons 555-2156, like get a new joke, and he's like, what? So it's funny. But yeah, terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. And then my second favorite scene is the garage door one, which like I remember like forever. I don't know why that like just struck me.
It's so weird.
The method
and like,
of murdering someone like with the garage door was like kind of awesome. So I forgot that like Rose McGowan, who plays Tatum, like that character is actually like a good character. I don't know if I thought she was like ditzy or like, I mean, she kind of is, but like is essentially a very good friend to Sydney, and she really like helps her out for like a good chunk of it. And then again, another instance of like a really badass lady you think is like gonna get away almost, and then doesn't because she doesn't fit through the dog door. But it's like a really good fight scene, and she's really able to like, you know,
fight back.
Really fight back.
Chucking those beer bottles at him.
Yeah, and I love when she like
fucker
thinks like he is her boyfriend or something.
Or Randy.
Right?
They always think it's
Randy.
Randy.
Yeah. And
Poor
so
Randy.
they're like really sassy to them at first, and I like love that kind of like attitude that they have. And then it's almost more terrifying when they're like, "Oh shoot, like
you're real,
is the real killer."
Yeah.
But that one always struck with me, and I guess I don't remember. Yeah, because when we were watching this, you were like, "Wait, I still don't understand like how she was killed with the garage door." But then I forgot they do kind of like a close up base of her neck being broken. So,
which I guess makes sense.
And then she was dangling there for like ever.
I still feel like your weight would like break the door, but maybe I don't know. Not that she was heavy, but I just feel like it's just like normal physics. I don't know. I don't know.
Yep.
Speaking of creepers, Sweetie's cat is just staring at us in the doorway.
And then the final scene always
the stabs.
And I will say that like this went by so fast. Like I feel like all of a sudden you were at the final scene, which does like take a while.
For a long time. Yeah.
But I was once that kind of And I totally forgot that like they go after Sydney like quite soon, like in the movie, and then that kind of keeps happening. I forgot. I thought it was like only the end scene, but I was wrong.
No, and I think that after seeing this several times, I think that the plan was always right to do this all to kill her on the anniversary. So
Why did all the other people?
Because
get killed?
needed to like set it up and like have her have this fear and like terrorize her and have kind of take the suspicion away from Billy by like putting him at the scene. It's like the thing you do where you're like, they are the killer, but if you put them there and then prove that they're not because he didn't make the calls.
Why did they blame Sydney? Because it's like he blamed the mom because, you know, she was having an affair with the dad or whatever. And then so they killed her and like that was done. But then why did they blame Sydney?
Because he was mental. He's a mental case.
Yeah.
Obviously snapped when his mom left, and then he was like stuck with his dad, who I gather is not a positive relationship. His dad is not the gentleman that is in the police station with him later. I do not know who that man is.
What? Oh, is it the lawyer?
It might be the lawyer, but like there's a part where he's like, "You weren't at home last night," and it makes it seem like that's his dad, right? But then later, Sydney's like, "Who was your call in prison? Like you get a call or in jail. Who did you call?" He's like, "I called my dad," but like he didn't answer. So obviously that's not his dad if he didn't answer, because like why did he come to the station?
Yeah, that's weird.
So it's always been a confusion for me. But I think that he had a bad relationship with his dad, and he just like obviously we know daddy issues, oof, bad. Mommy issues also bad. So he snapped. The weird thing though is that he had been dating Sydney, right? Or was that the first year that they started dating when her mom was killed? Like, was it just chance that they were dating when this all happened, and then he realized his girlfriend's mom is the reason?
Maybe that's how her mom met his dad.
Because they were dating.
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Right?
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's some fuzziness there, and it's a motive, but I still think they're crazy. They have to be right to kill all these people and be psycho.
Yeah. Well, and then that's my big question, like, because Stu doesn't really seem like, and he goes peer pressure, but like that is like, you know, they always say stabbing is like a crime of passion, so you really got to be like really want to kill somebody and really upset with someone to have stab them to death to the level that they do, unless you're like a psychopath, right? So okay, fine. That's who Billy is. But like Stu is just like zany.
Yeah.
So
but
it didn't make sense to me that he was able to do that to people.
And there's a scene. There's a scene where at first Billy's like, I don't have a motive. Like, did Hannibal Lecter have a motive? Did Norman Bates have a motive? No. So why do I need one? And he's like, okay, how about this? And then he like says the thing that like her mom said with his dad. And then Stu's like in shock, and he's like, oh my God, like I didn't know this. And I was like, you didn't know that? And yet you were like, yeah, let's kill this woman because she's a slut?
Yeah.
Obviously
no
they're
one's
crazy.
killing people for fun.
Right.
I mean, again, unless you're like a sociopath. But that's what always was like weird for me. And I know that that's supposed to be kind of like a funny angle to it. Like, it's peer pressure. Like because he obviously is like a really weak spirit.
Or he was totally in love with Billy and did whatever he wanted. So
yeah. But so that final scene, it like kind of goes on forever, but it's really clever in the sense that like everyone you think is gone comes back, and like
you don't know,
who the real
you don't know who it is until
until
the end when they reveal it.
And then there's all this sadness when you think someone is dead, but then they come back to save the day, but then they don't really save the day, and then like Sydney has to save herself, but she actually doesn't save herself all the way, but then does at the end. It's like such just like it just flips around all the time.
Yeah.
But really, it's the female characters that save the day.
Always.
Yep.
Like even the cop who's supposed to be like the cop and like save people does not save the day. He gets stabbed in the back and is like a useless hunk of meat. But yeah, Courtney Cox and kind of really saves the day, and then Sydney bops him in the head, the gun.
Yeah, and what's nice about that is that they like set up that relationship between Sydney and Gail as being enemies because of like what Gail did with the writing the book about the mom and stuff, and then they kind of come together at the end to like save the day. So I thought that was cool.
And that's why I really like the second one, because I think it perpetuates those relationships, like Randy and Gail and Dewey and Sydney all still are like friendly and talking to each other. And I think that I don't know, I just really like that, how it continues that. But yeah, I do like, that's one of my favorite tropes, definitely, the like anger, the like bad relationship turns into something good because somebody like saves someoand life and yada yada yada. It's good times. It's good times.
Good times.
Okay. So I mentioned there are a lot of references. I am now going to read them all. Maybe in one breath, probably not. There's a lot, and it's not one breath. I set myself up for failure. Okay, here we are. Ready? And some of these are more than once referenced, obviously. All right. Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Suspiria, Exorcist, Carrie, Prom Night, The Howling, Frankenstein, Candyman, Psycho, The Bad Seed, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, Silence of the Lambs, I Spit on Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, that didn't feel like a many, but
Wait, are these like visual and stuff that people say?
There might be more visual ones. Those were all things they said except for Suspiria, and I only know this because obviously I'm obsessed with the movie Suspiria, but when Drew Barrymore is hanging from the tree in the beginning is like a homage to the opening scene in Suspiria.
It's homage.
Shut up.
That's a tough one.
It's kind of like mimics that.
Okay, wait. So of that list, hold on. I want to just ask you because I picked up on some of these. The amateur that I am.
Well, they say them,
but some of them I didn't pick up on at all. So, like, what is the? Wait, hold on. What is the bad seed one? They say it.
Yeah, she says. So, what do you think? I'm a bad seed or something.
Okay.
All of them, they say them. I think.
What's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one?
He calls him Leatherface at the end. You were like, why is he Leatherface?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I saw all these. Yep. What's that?
I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
Tatum has a line where she's like, what is this movie? I Spit on Your Garage. So that's like a really brutal like rape revenge kind of movie from the 70s or 80s or something. But it's very like...
What is it called?
I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was actually called Day of the Woman, but they changed it to I Spit on Your Grave. But it was very much in the vein of Wes Craven's first movie, which was The Last House on the Left, which is like a really brutal, awful movie where these two girls get killed and then her parents kind of like do this revenge thing. So there's a lot of like revenge movies in the 70s, I think was like the thing. But that was Wes Craven's first movie. So I'm surprised, honestly, that he didn't throw that in there. That reference.
But he threw himself in there.
He threw himself in there. So the two cameos / kind of like Easter egg things here are, number one, Linda Blair is a newswoman who's like doing a piece in front of the school.
I never would have picked up on that. It's like her profile too.
I mean, you see her full on, but like you just don't. I mean, when have you seen Linda Blair as an adult? You know, like
she did some stuff, but I think could never really get like people
were
like
just
traumatized.
You're the devil. Yeah. Poor Linda. I think for a while she narrated one of those like ABC Family like spooky like not stories, but like they show you creepy like haunted houses and stuff.
Yeah.
I think she narrated that. So there's that, and then Wes Craven makes a cameo as the janitor in the hallway wearing a Freddy Krueger sweater.
I mean, the
and a
funny
hat.
thing about that is that, like, why would the janitor be dressed in a sweater? Who mops the floors in a sweater?
I know. But it's just really funny because Henry Winkler, who's the principal, is like, these fucking kids. And he's like, what'd you call me? And he's like, not you, Fred.
Yeah.
And he like looks at him and it's Wes Craven like in a dusty old wig and like hat. Like
Yeah.
being like
that
hat.
was awesome. I hope a lot of people got that when they saw it, like, in the movie theater, because that would be an LOL moment for me if I knew what it was.
Yeah. I'm there, and there could be other ones, but those are the two that I remember like reading about and being like, I got it. Yeah. So Henry Winkler as the principal. So when I was little, obviously I knew who Henry Winkler was, but this character always like really bothered me because I just don't get why he's there. Like, is he just there because it's Henry Winkler?
Yeah.
And we're just like, yay, Henry Winkler. Like, he's, first of all, as a principal, he seems like a loose cannon. He's very violent. And there's the scene where after these two kids get murdered at the beginning, these two idiots are running around the school dressed in the murderer's costume, being like, ah! And then they get in trouble. And he's like taking this giant pair of scissors and like cutting up the mask, but then like clips one of the guy's shirt and like makes a hole in it. And then he expels them, and I don't know. He seems weird. And there's this one moment where he touches Sydney's face, and I'm not about that. I am not about principals touching my face.
Yeah, that was.
I mean,
really
him
weird.
like weird hand on the shoulder, okay, but like cupping your cheek. I mean, your chin with your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it
what
was
is
too
that?
much. Yeah, maybe he like is a friends with somebody, and they're like,
Right.
oh, we need this like
And
zany principal character.
And like, why kill him? Like,
Right.
why?
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so that never made sense to me. I feel like that's the one kind of like weak point of that movie. This movie of like, I just really
And then
don't
like when
understand
they announced like that he was killed.
I guess, yeah.
But like no one finds him.
No,
Like,
but
it's
it
just kind
does.
of a
It does
thing.
remove all the other people at the party from there. I
That's
guess.
why. Okay.
But they could have also just been like, "Well, it's the curfew. Gotta go home."
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. Again, is it like they had the opportunity for Henry Winkler and they jumped on it? I don't know.
I do like that part in the party when you have so the Randy character
Mm-hmm.
is
Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy, and he works at Blockbuster, and so this is like a great like, now we no longer have Blockbuster to be like, ooh,
Oh, I don't
Blockbuster.
think they named it as Blockbuster, but,
But
just like a movie
video
store.
rental place, so it's like a busy Friday night, and you're like, oh my god, I remember Friday nights at the video store was amazing.
Hopping.
I know, so awesome. So there's this great part when they do have this house party and they're watching Halloween, and he's like the horror movie aficionado, so he like knows all about them, and he's kind of the one who's like guiding the audience through like who he thinks the killer is, and so you're kind of matching up like who you think the killer is. But anyway, they do this like really clever thing where it's like he explains what are like the main things that will get you killed in a horror movie is, right? The rules. So they talk about how it's always the virgin who ends up alive at the end. So don't have sex.
Can't have sex.
You can't do drugs or drink.
Right, because a lot of slasher movies were kind of about this like idea of like teenage sin, right? Where like you have these camp movies where people are having sex and that's like sinful, so they get killed, kind of thing. So it's kind of the theme, kind of that a slasher movie goes.
Yep.
So that was why those are rules.
Yep. And then the third one being don't say, I'll be right back.
Which is kind of like a loose rule, but like, and I'm sure Randy could make a list of like 20 rules, and maybe he just got
I was gonna
interrupted.
say, would you add any other ones to that? Watching so many horror movies? Are there really that patterns?
I mean,
that?
like, I don't know, just yeah. I mean, those are definitely all like kind of like tropes.
Isn't there like a black person one? Isn't that
Well, there's always like the black person, usually like the first one to die, which they reference in the second one, obviously, as Jada Pinkett Smith and I forget the other guy, but two black characters get killed in the opening scene. I think is like.
Well, I just watched The Thing, and a black character ends up at the end.
I know, which is another awesome thing. You're like, yeah, yeah, Keith David, so good. Yeah, so there's that. There's like obviously like the slutty girl obviously always dies. Like there's never a time, and even in this too, I would say Tatum is basically the slutty girl, and she does die. I mean, just like any time it's like, I can't think of ones like that. For me, it's always like when the camera's a certain way, I know when something's going to jump out because it does this weird thing where like it looks over, it's not focused on the actor anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of focused to the side. So you know that it's going to catch something jumping.
You know what I found interesting about this movie? Like half of the chasey scenes of when the ghost face killer is like chasing Sydney around, there are these like intricate stairways and like rooms that she goes into, and she like always has time to like shut the door and either lock it or put something in front of it. There's so many doors.
And it's
like every house is a maze.
I know. And it's funny because if you go back and watch it and you think, okay, at this point in time, Stu was the killer or whatever. So he comes in all these other rooms, right? Or like entrances because it's his house. So he knows that like if he goes this way, he'll end up there. So if you like rewatch it, you're like, oh, like that's why the killer knows or like whatever. Yeah.
But and like what about so in most of the scenes, like we said, the girls are pretty like badass, so they kind of like beat the shit out of the killers, and then you don't see them like really have any like effects on them.
That's a good point. I feel like for the most part they get them like in the nuts.
Well,
I mean,
would be like
Billy's not having
serious.
sex, so like does it affect him? I don't know. But that's a good point.
Right? Like they're just fine. Like you wouldn't have a limp or be like, ooh. Like I feel like that would have been a great like way again to like look at it after, and if they had made some passing joke being like, oh, like dude, why are you limping, or like, oh, it's like my bad knee or something like that, then you would have like picked up
that
on
would
it.
It would have been too obvious, I guess, though. But that's, I mean, the great thing about this kind of slash. So there's two different kinds of slashers, right? There is the kind of slasher where you know who the killer is, so like your Nightmare on Elm Street, your sequels to Friday the 13th. The first one is in this very, very much in this fashion. Halloween, I would say, is part of that, where like you know who the killer is. It's this supernatural kind of force, the boogeyman that's kind of you can't kill. And then there's another kind, which is like a whodunit murder mystery, basically, just kind of turned up to 11 because it's gore and people dying and stuff. But it's very much a very like veiled in mystery, right? Where like we don't know who the killer is. They're throwing red herrings at us. It's all that fun stuff, and that's why I love those movies. For the most part, they're kind of dumb. Like the '80s ones, like Prom Night is like this, and I mean the reveal of who it is always like pretty stupid. I just
Prom Night is a whodunit.
Yeah,
Are
like
people
that.
getting killed at prom night?
Yes.
Wait, is that the one where the girl has like a knife behind her back?
It's April Fool's Day.
Oh, damn.
Which I know, and that's because remember her giant braid is like a noose.
Yes,
I know that's a really good box
a great
cover. That's on streaming on Hulu or something. It's a good movie. I watched Sleepaway Camp this weekend. That's also a very
Camp
whodunit
ones
one.
are good. Ooh,
yeah,
those are scary. I'd be scared by a camp one. I feel like.
I mean, yeah. To a point, I think Friday the 13th are my least favorite.
Those are camp ones.
Yeah, the whole thing is in a camp.
It
Hello. Camp counselors having sex. Hello.
Oh my god.
No, I kind of hate those movies, and I don't like them. But I love Halloween. I love Nightmare on Elm Street, and obviously Scream are my favorite slashes. But other than that, I think I really gravitate more towards the other horror movies. Like I really don't love those cheesy slashers. Like this is like one of only few examples that I love those movies. I really tend towards the supernaturally kind of movies, I think, more so, you know, your witches, your Candyman, your fun stuff like that.
Yep. Totes. I just realized I did not read the trivia on this.
I know. I thought you did because but tell everybody.
Yeah, I was busy like looking up other things. I was on IMDb,
Is
but
Skeet Ulrich a rapist?
No, I was on IMDb looking at like what other movies these actors had done, because like I said, they were really like big in the 90s. Like, I mean, I remember when Matthew Lillard was like a big deal in the 90s, and he was on like all this stuff, and like you'll still like see him in stuff now, but he's like such an odd looking dude. Like his face is like strange to me.
I had a weird crush, not like a super crush, but I think in this time that I was like injecting myself into the movie as a character, it was like, oh, because then I get to be Matthew Lillard's girlfriend, and like I wasn't attracted. I don't know, but so he was just on Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, and he talks in that episode about how he somehow got the part in The Descendants. Remember, he's the guy that George Clooney's wife has been having an affair with, and he's like, why did they give that part to me? Like, I am not a Hollywood stud, but like, and Dax was like, no, like, man, you were studly.
No,
in that.
he
you
was
were, like running on the beach,
but he's like really like, I would say now like interesting looking, but not. And he wasn't all those, like he was in She's All That, obviously like Scooby Doo. He was just kind of big,
and annoying. Like,
and he always played the annoying guy, like whatever. But then you have, as we talked about when we did the Craft, Skeet Ulrich being like all this stuff, and like okay, two things first of all. I was too young really to like, not that I didn't have crushes on boys in like when I was whatever how old I would have been, 13, but I just look back and be like, why did anyone think that guy was cute?
Well, he's always
like these weird oily tendrils that just like come down all the time. And he's like, they're like always in his face, and he's like, like so scary and rapey. I just don't.
That was the
like,
look.
That was the look.
The Jared Leto.
No, I get why Jared Leto is hot. He has a beautiful face.
I know, but
Skeet
it's that like,
Ulrich is
hairstyle.
creepy. And then he has like weird teeth that like turn in. Like everything about that guy
aside
bugs me.
From this and The Craft, what else was he in?
So I looked, and this was the one bit of trivia that I did find out. His first movie, credited as an extra, guys, is Weekend at Bernie's. Oh my god, that is the best fact I've heard in 10
and
years.
I was like, pick or it didn't happen, because we all know what happens with IMDb. People are like, yeah, Rita Wilson was in Teen Witch, and you're like, go what? And then you live your whole life thinking that, and it's false.
Yep, but like, God bless the internet, because you just type in boop 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 Skeet Ulrich, Weekend at Bernie's, and pops a photo with his face circled. So I will share that with everybody. It is proof. Proof is in the pudding. Proof is in this photo.
It's pretty funny.
So that's awesome. Good for you. I mean, Now, I like Skeet a little bit better now, honestly, that he was in
Because
Weekend
he was
at
a
Bernie's.
random extra
Yeah.
in a Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
But my point is, like, because these are the
did
only
other
two.
stuff.
Okay, did he? But like, was
Do
he
you remember
always
the one
a bad
where-
person?
No. Do you remember the one where there's like bank robbers with like Matthew McConaughey, someone else who was hot and good looking at the time, and then Skeet Ulrich, and they were like these brother bank robbers. It was like the Newton Boys or something it was called. I saw it in the movie theater. Juliana Margulies is like the woman love interest. So he was like one of the brothers in that. I didn't like wasn't familiar with many of the movies. I mean, this is his like kind of big movie. He's known for this. This is like what comes up on his page. So that's like kind of sad. But he is really good. I mean, he's really good in this and really scary and terrifying. And that last scene where he just basically like refuses to die and he's basically becoming like unhinged is like really intense. And it's sad because I remember I saw like when we watched this today, like he's kind of dead on the ground. And I was like, this is how old I am, right? I'm like, he's just a little boy. Because really, what are they, like 17 years old?
Yeah, but
And
I think
committed
he
all
was
these
older than that in
crimes,
this. But yes,
But like so sad that they were these like horrible
Hey.
killers and they're like 17?
can be a killer when you're little.
I know.
The good son.
Crazy.
Hello.
Crazy.
Yeah, so that's Skeet. So that's one thing you looked up. The other thing Sweetie looked up during this was that there's a line where Tatum's like, you can only read that Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before you have to believe it. And we were like, what? First of all, I thought she said Richard Gere dribble, which I thought was like a dumb tabloid article about him like cheating on someone. No, Sweetie, explain.
Yeah. So for the record, this is on Snopes, that like, you know, truth bust or whatever, like truth telling internet thing. You can like type in shit in there and they'll tell you if it's like true or not, basically. You know, like it's a fact checking site. So that pops up immediately and I'm like, oh, Richard Gere plus gerbil. I mean, that's like literally all you have to put in. So apparently there's like this rumor started that Richard Gere got taken to the ER because there was a, I can't even like say it without laughing. There was a gerbil. The post said there was a gerbil in his rectum. So like apparently he tried to put a gerbil up his ass. I mean, what? Was it alive or dead?
I would hope alive, but like, because if you killed a gerbil just to put it in your ass,
Why Richard Gere?
I don't know.
Who started
So,
that?
but did it say truth or false?
False.
Oh, are we sure? Like, I mean, how do we know? I'm sure he probably
you
paid
hear
someone.
it so many times and it has to be true.
But people put weird shit in their ass. Like my friend,
A gerbil.
my friend Megan worked in the ER, and she would tell stories about weird things people put in their butt. And it's scary because the
think it's like a
butt
fetish and a
has a
thing.
thing where, like, if you put it too far up, it like shoots up, it gets sucked up and never comes out. I mean, it comes out again, but like that's why people get things stuck in their ass all the time, because once you go past that point, it's just like sucked in. So there's like a light bulb in someone's butt or something.
And let's just say, like, what can you put up your butt? It has to be something that is like hard that you can shove up there. A gerbil is soft. A gerbil is not like a hard, unless it was like a frozen dead
It
gerbil.
was like a funny thing to be like, I'm gonna put this. He was like on drugs or something. I was like, I'm gonna put this gerbil in my ass. I don't know.
You cannot put a gerbil up your ass.
It wouldn't be my first choice.
You cannot.
Obviously.
You physically is impossible. I need like a Mythbuster on this. Can you put a gerbil up your ass? That is crazy.
We'll call him.
I'm so glad we've like this. We
I know.
now like,
I really had
enlightened
no
about
idea.
this moment of pop culture, because honestly, that was like a huge whatever. I have no idea to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about which is always my favorite thing about watching these older movies. You know, the 90s touchstones.
90s.
What made this movie so 90s? I have two things.
Okay. I mean, the clothes, obviously, I already mentioned a little bit, but Tatum's wardrobe is very strange. She wears a lot of like ugly. There's a lot of bright, ugly colors, I should say. I guess that was a
Wardrobe
90s
felt
thing.
very mod to me. Like
Sometimes,
a
but
little
then
bit
she'd be like,
mod.
"Now I'm gonna wear a cropped football, tight
that was
jersey
weird.
and
those
red pants with a belt." Like, I don't know, it's just very like up and down.
Okay.
But Gail Weathers, ugly bright colors.
But I thought that was part of her like newscaster sort of
Her her trashy
Yeah.
tabloid kind of thing. I think Sydney's outfits for the most part
Were
are like
fine.
pretty fine. But yeah, other than that, nothing stuck out in terms of clothes.
So I'll
to
say, which we already did talk about. So like portable phone a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. So remember like when, you know, telephones, guys, when we used to have telephones. And we had, I remember when we got like our cord, like when the cordless
Our
came
first
out.
cordless phone.
Whoa. I mean, that was like such a big deal. I remember it looked so huge. And it's, I think you talked on the last podcast about how, you know, as we've seen, you've looked at your old iPhones or even and seen how that technology changes.
box?
And that was so funny, like how we were just now looking back and seeing the level of phone we have now and how much like the cordless like blew our damn mind is amazing.
And remember also when maybe I guess in the 90s we'd be like at the phone store or whatever or like Radio Shack and they'd have video phones and we were like, whoa.
Yeah.
And now it's not even a blinked at.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which we still like
Such a
don't
wave of the
use
future.
that much. I mean,
FaceTime,
yeah, but I don't really FaceTime that much.
video conferencing, like
I don't
that
do
kind
that
of
either.
thing.
I hate it. I think it's just awkward to like look at someone. Well,
And
I
but
did
people do
Skype
it.
with someone today.
There you go.
So there you go. So I was gonna say bad highlights. So Gail Weathers has like so it's like Courtney Cox, right? Who's Courtney Cox is like dark hair like we do, basically, and she's turned into this like horrible highlighted like blonde, which like again is supposed to be I think her character being sort of like this
just
over
the highlights
processed.
are blonde. She's not blonde.
Yeah, I think it's all highlighted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it reminded me of my horrible highlighting days. I don't know what I was thinking.
It was the look.
I know, but I'm so mad that the hairdresser was like, yeah, like caramel colored highlights would look so good on you. They look so dumb. And like my hair had natural ones anyway.
To be fair, wasn't that Heidi or was that Diana?
I don't know. I mean, they're
She
going
was
to
a
do
very
whatever
good
you want to do.
I
At
know.
the
They're not-
salon.
yeah.
And highlights cost so much money. They're like, yes, we will highlight your
And
hair.
it was this fashion. Like, who are they to say it wouldn't
was.
look good? Like,
I
maybe
also
it
had
looked good
a
to them.
tragic Jennifer Aniston cut that I will never live down. Like that was the other one
It
where
was too short.
everyone was doing.
She cut it too short, and your hair gets curly, or like is wavy. So it's like mom
Then
always
it looked like the Carol Brady, like the Brady Bunch
yeah.
mom in like the season where she had like the basically like mullet, like the close cropped cut with the mullet long pieces in the back. Wish I could find a photo.
just like your hair type is just not meant for
But
that
I was
hairstyle.
so mad that like when I got the cut, I was like, yes, I'm like Jennifer Aniston, like so good, and I like thought I looked good, and then I would see pictures and I would be like, oh god, and like the growing out period was weird, like ugh.
What are you gonna
gross.
do? What are you
Yeah,
gonna do?
Bad.
Yeah.
90s nipples, or otherwise known as like not lined bras.
Yeah.
I don't know what was happening
they, like,
there.
didn't have support or something. It was very thin
I think it was
material.
intentional. I think it's intentional.
I guess
I think
nipples
they
were big.
they
then.
tweaked Rose McGowan for that scene because it was the only nipples you see the entire movie. And it goes along the theme of there is sort of like a boob shot sort of thing that they
Yeah.
talk about in horror movies. You get like one tit shot or something. I forget like what they call it. And they show this scene in Halloween where like that girl is taking off her top. And then kind of like juxtaposed with like Sydney losing her virginity. But you don't see her boobs, which is interesting.
I think she's one of those people that like never
does
shows
show
her
it,
boobs.
yeah.
Could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. But wait, no, does she in Wild Things?
Oh, probably.
No, I don't think she does. I mean Denise Richards definitely, but not hers.
Denise
yeah.
Richards in the.
So that was 90s, but you're also missing the 90s snack bags.
Yeah.
So we spotted an old Tostitos bag, which really brought us back. An old Doritos bag on the table, which I always love to see. And then the cameraman's eating baked Tostitos, which, and I remember like looking at that bag. It's like kind of a green bag, but those were gross.
Those were
They were like paper thin.
paper thin corn chips.
Just not fun.
Ugh,
Not fun.
disgusting.
But yeah,
And
that
as
was
I said,
90s.
super sad because the camera guy, what's his name? Kenny dies right after that. I'm like, damn guys, imagine your last meal on earth is a fucking baked Tostito.
It's really sad.
Sad. Then his throat gets slit. It's probably the only thing that was going through his mind. Man, I wish I got the full fat. Real
No.
Tostitos.
I mean, well, he felt bad because Gail was always like, I know you're like so fat, but
oh my god,
it's all her fault, probably.
Yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah.
90s nipples, yeah. Sorry, I just saw that note in my
Good, good times. But
But then
yeah.
I thought like 80s boobs were different than 90s boobs.
Yes.
I stand by that.
I laughed. I was like, oh my God, Sweety. Yeah, so good times, guys. I love to get a horror movie in right in the beginning of October. I mean, we'll do a couple of other spooky-ish ones, but probably not any other like straight horror ones. Because like I said, I didn't really start watching those until I was significantly older. So there you have it, folks.
We got one coming for your birthday, though.
I know. Are you gonna say when it? No,
No,
Okay.
don't tell them.
All right, surprise. But yeah, that's it. Anything else you need to say? Close it out.
No, I'm good. Cool. I'm good.
All right, cool, guys. Well, I hope you enjoy this movie. Hopefully you've seen it. I'm sorry if you haven't and we spoiled everything, but like you know what we're going to talk
There's
about.
no spoiler alert when a movie is 30 years old.
Or when we have a segment called Sweety Synopsis, like we're going to say what happens.
Or 20 years old. 22? Host.
I don't know. I don't do math.
Yeah.
Math and I are like,
22
no
years
thanks.
old.
But yeah, good times. So come and find us, talk to me about it, talk to us about it at the Sweety Club on Twitter, and Large Marge sent us on Instagram. Thanks for listening. Bye.